Hey there, I'm Bree Stockwell, and this is The Complete Creative, the podcast for passionate creatives and visionaries who want it all: meaningful work, epic ideas, and a beautiful life. Around here, we ditch the hustle, get intentional, and make space for success that actually feels good. This, of course, is Bree, and I think I've decided I'm going to give you a little life update every time I pop in here because I think it's fun. One day we'll eventually sell our house, but in the meantime, like we did a bunch of yard work and housework this past weekend, and all of my kids are now gone. It took a little while for all of my adult children to leave because they bounced back, but my husband and I are now living in the cleanest house in the world. At least that's what it feels like. So anyway, I'm enjoying lots of natural light and comfortable furnishings in an uber clean space. So today I'm going to talk about a word I love and a word I don't love. Or maybe you have an interesting relationship to it. It is productivity. And I want to say about this, I love the way it feels being productive, telling myself I'm being productive. It can feel amazing because in that instance, I'm in momentum. I feel like I have some structure happening. And I just want to be honest with you. There's a little dopamine hit, or maybe more than a little dopamine hit when I check something off. And I know you feel that too, because I've talked to a lot of you that are like, I wish I could be more productive. And this is what we want. We want that feeling of momentum and structure, like the checking the to-do list that makes it feel great. That chemical hit of accomplishment. So I want to talk about this chemical for just a minute because I think it will help us understand productivity in the way that I'm going to talk about it. So this chemical dopamine, you know how it feels. It feels amazing. And when we get the hit or the high in relation to the accomplishment or feeling productive, we feel capable. There's a sense of value. We feel valuable. We're in control. And especially in seasons when there's some chaos happening in our lives. For me, it looks like, can I just get the to-do list out and check mark so I can feel better about myself? Raise your hand if you have done this. And do you know what? Full transparency. At the end of the day, I have made the list of all the things I did and checked them off and then given myself a high five because I wanted to see what I did. It can be a great way of showing ourselves that we did something, but also like, what was I trying to accomplish? 100% I wanted the dopamine hit. But I want to talk about what happens when that productivity high becomes a way to override our intuition or to avoid something like rest, or as a bypass of this deeper misalignment. Because I think a lot of us use the idea of productivity, and I'm saying this in quotes, to bypass something else, to avoid something, so that we can get the dopamine high. So the purpose of this episode is to help you see what may or may not be working. It is not to criticize yourself. This isn't the space for that. In fact, my coaching spaces are never the space for self-criticism. It's a way for you to see productivity in a new way and how you can use it or the idea of it in a way that honors your own creative rhythm and not someone else's plan or strategy. I'm going to talk about some different productivity myths that we've all heard and why they have felt misaligned and what you might want to do with them. So the first one is, myth number one is, wake up at 5 a.m. and win the day. And this comes from, I read this book, it's called The 5 a.m. Club, and there were some great things about it. When I read it, I was like, I'm reading this because I'm interested in what they have to say, and then I will use my intuition to decide if I want to do any of it. So here's what I want to say about this. Morning people exist. They do. You all know who you are. You like pop out of bed and you're like, woohoo, let's go, right? So here's the thing is, whenever morning people exist, the other side does too. And this goes with anything. So if morning people exist, also night owls exist, slow risers, and everything in between. I'm not really a night owl. I kind of feel like I'm a little bit more on the morning person side, like positive morning energy. But the older I get, oh my gosh, it feels old when I say this. I kind of feel like I'm a slow riser, but only because I want to start my day very intentionally. I notice when I get up and I start moving quickly, I don't have time to ground myself, to take a moment, to set intentions for the day. And the interesting thing with this is I was talking with, I don't know how long ago, it was a while ago. I was talking with a friend of mine. He's a photographer, and I said something about, he was like, like this 9 to 5. He's now working for himself, but I just mentioned something about like, well, when are you most creative? And he said, I feel like in the evening, but that's when I should go to bed. And I'm like, well, what if you don't? And he's like, well, I always thought I had to do like the 8 to 5 thing because that's what normal people do, right? And he was like, wait a minute, if I work after 9, that feels amazing. And I'm like, so get up later and work at 9 or whatever it is, right? And so understanding our unique rhythms and plugging in specific tasks or blocks when we have specific energy, that works for me. I'm wondering if it works for you. Aligning your energy with the right timing is so much more powerful than forcing yourself into someone else's ideal, like getting up at 5 a.m. If you want to experiment with getting up at 5 a.m., totally do it. If this is something that kind of feels a little confronting for you, you can ask yourself like, or if you want to align your day, you can ask yourself, when do I feel most mentally clear? For me, it's like 9 a.m., 10 a.m. When does creativity naturally come forth? For me, it is not 3 p.m. Funny, it's actually 3 p.m., but I don't feel like I have to be super creative right now because I already created the outline for this and I just have to show up. And then you can structure your time around when your energy naturally ebbs and flows. If you have a full-time job, it is going to look different. And so you can structure your day job tasks based on this kind of idea. And then if you are someone that does creative work during it, you can structure that time when you feel most energetically aligned. Or if your day job is something completely different and say like you're a writer and you're working on the weekends, you can then construct your weekends how they need to go to give you time and space for your creative work. All of this is going to feel like more intuitive. I'm just giving you some things to think about here. Okay, so myth number 2, plan your day the night before. I've actually heard this multiple times and I'm like, wait a minute. If I plan my day the night before, at night when I have the least amount of energy, I'm picturing myself at 9 o'clock at night trying to like schedule. I don't want to make decisions at that time. And I don't want to make decisions when I'm feeling fatigued. And I don't personally think it's a great practice to make decisions like that on the daily, like having to remake those decisions. It kind of feels like, oh, I didn't get my to-do list done. Let me schedule in what's left over for tomorrow. But I also have all these other things I want to get done, you know? So planning when you're exhausted can lead to disconnection and not intentionality. So here's what I do instead of planning the night before is I do a weekly review. It's a Sunday review session. I suggest that everyone do a weekly review looking back on your previous week. I don't care when it is. Could be Monday morning. I do mine Sunday afternoon when I'm chill. So I review the week before, what worked, what didn't, a few other questions I asked myself. I look forward, like what are the main things that I want to get to this next week? I have a whole system that I do. Speaking of systems, but that's when I want to be intentional about it and make the decisions on what I'm going to do for the week. So based on what I understand about my personal energy. And then it's going to be an experiment. And I may decide the next week to make it look different. So what I do in the evening is I do look at my calendar for the next day because I want to see if there's anything that I'm feeling that might need shifting. And then I do that. Or I want to have in my head, because I don't like to open my calendar as soon as I wake up the next day, I kind of want to have, okay, I don't really have to show up until this time. I know I can just wake up and do my things. So I kind of have that in my head. Okay, here's the thing. I leave space in my calendar always for spontaneous creating. I do not like it when I'm back to back to back to back. I bet you don't either. I also leave space for intuitive decisions and shifting. And I also leave space for life to happen. Like when my friend calls me today, where I'm going to her house for dinner, and she says, "Can you show up 30 minutes early?" I'm like, yeah, would love to. So then now I'm just doing that because I can. Okay, so myth number 3, just do the hardest thing first, or quote, eat the frog. This is great if it works for you. For some people, for some of you, it like works amazing because you're like, I see the biggest resistance with this. It feels the hardest and I'm going to tackle it first. And this is actually going to work really well for you too if it creates relief for you or if it gives you some greater momentum. The hardest thing is done. Now everything else will flow like a waterfall. That's great. But some of us also have sensitive nervous systems. And so warming up our bodies with something lighter that's not super hard can help us stay regulated and can help us ease into the flow of creating. You could choose to do something that feels kind of easy and warm yourself up and then tackle something hard, or you can build up to it, 1, 2, 3, or whatever it is. The point is to check in with yourself and ask yourself if you're avoiding the task. Why are you avoiding the task? The thing. Why does it feel so hard? And is there some way that you could ease it to make it not feel so hard, actually? When I would go to write, I told myself I wasn't a great writer. In fact, I was like, I'm a terrible writer. That's actually what I said. And so when I went to go write, it felt really hard because I already had some previous self-judgment. You can check in and see if that's around. And now I just write because I'm like, it's going to be probably messy. And maybe I'm not a writer, but like I can write, so I can just do it. Starting with something that feels more gentle or small, it is not procrastination. It is flowing with your natural energy, like it's energetic preparation. So you can check in with yourself. What would help me feel more grounded? Or what would help my nervous system feel more grounded before I tackle the bigger thing? What does my body need right now? Okay, myth number 4, discipline over motivation. Like you don't need motivation. For sure, I have said this. You actually do not need it. You have never needed motivation. You can totally do anything that you want without motivation. But some of us procrastinate because we think we need it. And here's the truth. It's not about needing it. It's about wanting to feel in alignment with what you're doing. So if there is a resistance there where you don't feel motivated, you're also going to check in, like how I just talked about, right? And you can decide in the moment whether or not you want motivation at that moment or you just want to power through and get it done. I think a lot of times powering through and getting it done, like the more often we do that without digging into the why, that actually is a space where it will create more burnout for us. Like we want intrinsic motivation more often. I'm not saying we need it all the time. I'm just saying we want it more often. So when your actions, when what you're doing matches your values, your capacity, your natural rhythm, the motivation will come. When what you want to do, your actions, match your values or your vision, your capacity for doing it, your natural rhythm, your energy, motivation naturally comes. And for sure, discipline has its place. I totally think it does, but discipline should never be the tool that we use to bulldoze over ourselves all the time. That's where like the hustle and the grind and the forcing come in. That can eventually take us to a burnout space. And I'm not saying you should be afraid of that, but you may, if you're finding yourself doing that more often, you're going to want to check in and be like, why am I doing this? Why do I feel like I have to be disciplined all the time? What you really want is resonance, an agreement between what your body and your mind feel like doing and the activity. The resonance is like a pull, like you're magnetized towards the thing, not dread. Okay, so myth number 5, build one routine and stick to it. So I know some people who really love routines and they totally work for them. And I think it depends on your personality. What is your personality type? Do you work really well with routines? Like, here's the thing. We all need routines, all of us. But do we need strict routines where this exact thing has to happen every single day at these times? That doesn't work for me. I was on a walk with a friend of mine and she asked me, she was like, I feel like I mentioned this in a previous podcast episode. And she was like, do you have a routine that you do every day? And I was like, no, I mean, there are some, but I use daily non-negotiables. I have very specific things that are non-negotiable for my day, like walking, like reading and journaling. I have a few things that I'm always going to make sure get done. They all have to do with my body, like I want to walk, my connection to who I am, that's like journaling, my connection with people. I'm always recreating my relationship with my husband and or my kids. And then I have a few other things that might fluctuate day to day. I always want to take care of my body and I always want to care for my relationships. And then after that, I have business non-negotiables, all of those things. And I do pre-decide when these happen. So I know I like walking at 9 a.m. because it gives me time to wake up slow and then journal and then read. And then I put on my workout clothes and I go. Do I ever want to walk when I'm ready? Usually not. But I do it anyway because it's my non-negotiable. I just, yep, okay, time to go, right? And the reason I pre-decide is because decision fatigue is real. And so kind of back to like creating your schedule the night before, decision fatigue is so real. The less decisions you can make, or if you can make one decision one time, that's a big deal. Because after that, you're just expending energy that you could be using for something else. Okay. So the order that I do things, the timing, how I do it, all of that, that can shift with my energy and my schedule and what happens during the day. But I definitely have non-negotiables that I do on the daily. And here's what I want to say about that. What you want is rhythm, a rhythm to your days so that it feels like consistent and it feels really good. Oh yeah, this is when I do this. My dog reminds me when she needs to go out, like when she's supposed to get dinner. Right? That's the rhythm. All right, myth number 6, you just need a better system. Systems can be really beautiful and they've helped me a lot. But systems do not do the creating. People do. So if something isn't working, you probably don't need a better system or a different system. If something isn't working, instead of just looking for the quick fix, pause and ask yourself, is it my system or a tool or any system, okay? Or is it pressure that I'm putting on it? Or is it more about pressure that I'm putting on myself or on the system to save me? And most of the time, finding a new system or changing up a system actually can become a way to procrastinate. Oh, let me put off doing this other thing because I need to get the system done. I need to tackle the system before I can do the actual thing. It's probably not true. So the system can become another way to like chase the dopamine hit of being productive because it will feel good. It will feel good to implement a new system. But ask yourself if you really need that or if a new system is in alignment with what you're doing. So I want to actually tell you about a time where I actually needed a new system. For a long time, I was consistently late. I wasn't getting projects done, just wasn't doing all the things that I really wanted to be doing. And I actually just thought it was me. Like I'm the problem. Because I was thinking that I'm the problem, I had been kind of working on showing up more on time to things, which is a great idea for me. And figuring out like, how do I put stuff in my calendar and just show up to do it? Because that, for me, putting stuff on the calendar is how I get stuff done. Like, I'm like, oh, I see it. It happens. That's very intentional. It's an intentional way of being and creating for me. But there was a time I was chatting with a friend and he was telling me about his project list and let me check that off the list. I'm like, whoa, tell me about this. And he said, oh, it's a system. It's a productivity method called getting things done. And I was like, tell me about it. So he met with me over Zoom and kind of showed me what he does. And then I went all in listening. Like there's a podcast called Getting Things Done. It's a method and a book by David Allen called Getting Things Done, or GTD. Y'all, once I started implementing this one, I actually get more done and I don't feel like it's a burden. Like I'm not doing more. I'm getting the things done that I really want to be doing because I'm organized, or I'm more organized. Like I see what needs to be done next. So that for me was a moment where I was like, yeah, I did need a new system because it did help. And the system was in alignment with what I was looking for, not because I needed to procrastinate getting other things done. My whole point of all of this is to say that systems can be helpful, but only when they're aligned and only if you actually truly need it to be creating what you want to be creating. All right, so myth number 7, this is probably my favorite. Grind now, rest later. right? Have you heard of all this? Like, you can sleep when you're dead. And I'm like, no, you can nap now if you're tired. So if you listened to last week's episode on success without sacrifice, and I'll put the links in the show notes if you missed it, you know where I stand on this, right? That you can have the success you want and you can achieve the vision that you want without sacrificing the things that matter most. So rest, play, downtime, none of these things are breaks from productivity. You don't need to rest later. You can rest now. All of those things, rest, play, downtime, being in the void, like they're all part of the plan. I've heard from so many people, if I just stay here, I'm not being productive. And I'm always questioning it in my head. I'm like, but are you not? Like, don't we need that? I feel like rest is probably one of the most productive things that you can do. It replenishes your energy. It gives your mind time to recalibrate and reset so that you can come back to or come to the next thing. You do not have to earn your rest. You are here to create from a place of wholeness, and rest is part of that. Because sometimes we're in the thick of it. We're creating, we're busy, we're doing the work, we're in the work. We got our hands dirty, sometimes literally, right? And then when it's done, we wash our hands and we rest and we renew for the next time. It is the rhythm of how we create, which is why I talk about rhythm, because rest is part of it. Sometimes we're up and sometimes we're down. And it's also important here too, for us as women, we have natural cycles of rest and creating. We all do. Everyone in the world does. And the more we can lean into our personal rhythms and set ourselves up productively in alignment with those, that is what actually moves the needle. So as we wrap this up, those were so fun to go over. I have a couple of questions for you, but if you want to, you could take a minute and design your ideal day, a day of your ideal aligned productivity, like one that matches your rhythm. What would that look like? I am a big believer that in order to create what we want, we've got to have the vision of it. So being able to visualize it and picture it before you go create it is going to be very helpful for you. So a couple of questions that just practical questions that you can consider. What time of day do you feel the most mentally clear or creatively alive? There's going to be at least one. Maybe there's multiple. What time of day? Where are you following someone else's system that maybe doesn't quite fit right now? Does it feel like it's working? If it isn't, why? Do you need to switch it? Maybe you don't. Maybe you just need to have periods of time where you literally just rest or play. Number 3, what non-negotiables, remember I talked about non-negotiables, what non-negotiables help you feel grounded even on chaotic days? Do you need chocolate in the afternoon? Maybe that could be a non-negotiable. All right, and last, what do you actually need more of? If you haven't been feeling productive, like if you want the dopamine hit more, if you're addicted to checking off the to-do list, what do you actually need more of? Is it structure? But maybe it's space. Or Maybe it's support. Maybe you want someone to support you in designing the life that you want intentionally that works with your energy and the rhythm of how you like to create. In that vein, if you've been feeling chaotic or disjointed, or the systems you're using, they have worked in the past, but they're feeling broken, or you feel like your energy is all over the place and you're not quite sure why, it's time for a deeper level of support. I offer one-to-one clarity calls to help you get honest about what's working and what's not, and what alignment could look like for you. I will put a link to schedule one of those with me if you would like to chat more. I want to end by saying productivity does not have to look like how you've always thought about it. It can look completely different. It can look like rest. It can look like big blocks of time where you're just free creating. And it doesn't even have to look time-wise like anyone else's schedule, unless you want it to and unless it feels good. So, all right, until the next time, happy creating.